I'm a guy that's 26. Each day I build with bricks. I like Star Wars playsets. I'm Rich Boy J. Hello boyos, Rich Boy J here, back with another video, and this is going to be another episode of Your Questions Answered. If you're unfamiliar with the series, Your Questions Answered is a Q&A series that I do here on this channel. So if you want to see one of your questions answered below, leave it in the comment section. Make sure it is Lego, Star Wars, or Lego Star Wars related, and then check back next week to see if you made the cut. First question this week comes from Forever Lego Studios. He says, with how well received your recent custom gunship is getting, is there any custom ships that are on your mind to possibly design down the road, possibly your own take on an X-Wing, or possibly a vehicle that is yet to have been done? Yes, this is a great question. He's asking about custom vehicles. I got my gunship still chilling back here, man. It still just makes me so happy to just glance back at those custom gunships. But as for the future, if there's one thing that has been on my mind, having built a gunship, the ATTE has to be up there. I feel it is the perfect complementary vehicle to a gunship, so that's one that I'm definitely considering. Outside of that, it really just depends on what the next MOC dictates for the most part. One thing that I kind of have been thinking about lately is updating my AT-AT, since that is a bit topical right now. A lot of people are just really into big AT-ATs, and that was like my first build, so there's quite a lot I could do with it, having progressed so much as a builder. And I think I'd be interested in seeing, you know, if I did do an AT-AT right now, just how different might it be compared to my original one. Other things that I've been thinking about, honestly, a T-70 X-Wing might be cool. I would like to do some sort of starfighter, just because it seems like all the vehicles I've built have been 2,000 pieces plus, so that would definitely be one that I'd want to look at. And outside of that, I don't know, there's so many things, there's so many options, like, and I know at some point I'm gonna have to do a big Royal Starship build. I don't know, man, it just depends. That's actually a good question for you guys. What vehicles would you like to see me design? I'd love to know what you guys are particularly interested in right now. Next question comes from Darth Jar Jar. He says, hi Jay, thanks so much for answering my question last week. It's so cool to see my profile on the screen. Well, congrats, your profile is on the screen once again. I was wondering if you ever get sick of doing a large scale build, and when a new idea pops into your head, for example, do you wish you could change your plan and start building Canto Bight right now? I think that could be a downside to doing MOCs at such a large scale. I definitely feel like I'd always want to move on to something new. The Rogue Shadow is rebuilt by Rom Koda after your events of the Force Unleashed 1 to be used as a troop carrier and becomes symmetrical and kind of looks like a huge giant interceptor. That is very interesting, and yeah, I remember your question from last week about the Rogue Shadow. I had no idea. So in regards to your question this week, that is one of the biggest challenges, especially if you're someone who is very, you know, inspired and have a lot of ideas floating around in your head about wanting to do a big MOC. Like if you're, I don't want to say have a short attention span, but if you're just someone who, you know, I guess is interested in a large variety of things, you want to build a lot, large scale building is probably not going to be for you, because it is a very significant time commitment, and not all parts of building large scale are glamorous, not all parts of it are exciting. Sometimes you spend hours, days, weeks, months just building multiple trees to just literally fill up an area, and some people might find that fun. I think most people find it a bit repetitive, and you know, it's not, you don't always get to see the big picture. The thing about the large scale builds for the most part is you're building large scale to get that big picture, and if you can't, you know, accept the fact that you might not get to fully appreciate that big picture for a very long time, for a month or a year or two down the line, then I definitely say stay away from building large scale. I think I particularly like to do large scale, and it's not as big of a deal for me as it might be for other people, because I generally am a very patient person. Like, I'm very fine playing the long game when it comes to these builds, because the big picture is ultimately what motivates me. And I think the other part of that is you have to fall in love with the process, so to speak. You know, a lot of people kind of mention like the process, and I think this is the case with anything you do in life, any goal you want to achieve. The goal itself can't just be your only motivation. The goal is nice and the goal is great when you get there, but for you to truly stay committed to the grind, you can't only be motivated by the goal. You have to fall in love with the process. So if you're not someone who's in love with the process, you're just motivated by seeing a MOC completed, maybe stay away from large scale builds. But for me, this doesn't typically become much of an issue. I have a long list in my head of builds I want to do that could occupy me for the next 10 to 15 years, honestly. And those are things that I'm certainly excited to build. And I'd say sometimes, even while I'm in the middle of building something, I get particularly inspired by some other thing. And I think about it a lot, and I think, okay, like, how would I do this? How would I do that? But I usually am pretty good at staying course corrected and being committed to whatever I have currently going on, because I understand at the end it's going to be a very beautiful thing, a thing that most people can't do, and a thing that I'll be very proud of myself for finishing. So I love the process itself. I love building. I love, you know, the planning that goes into making one of these large scale builds come together. And I also understand that once it is finished, it will hopefully be something remarkable. This question comes from Brick Films. He says, do you think Marvel is doing a better job creating movies and shows over Star Wars? Personally, I like Star Wars better, but I do think Marvel is making much better movies and more of them. This is a very great question. I feel this is a topic kind of floated around oftentimes in our community. I want to preface this by saying, like, I'm not the Marvel guy. Like, I don't watch every Marvel movie. I watch a lot of them, but Marvel isn't super meaningful to me. Like, I wouldn't be heartbroken if I never watched another Marvel movie for the rest of my life. You know, they're just not important parts of my life. I, for the most part, enjoy them when I watch them, but it's not required viewing for me. So I'll preface this topic off by saying that for the first part. But I think my bigger response to this is, like, you know, obviously a lot of people watch the Marvel movies and they consistently enjoy them. I think the difference though is, and I could be wrong about this, but just from my impression, I feel like Star Wars is judged and so much more heavily scrutinized than the Marvel movies. Like, Star Wars movies are kind of viewed as like generational films, right? Like, everyone goes in almost nervous to watch a Star Wars movie because they're like, oh, if this sucks, like, my life is gonna be ruined. Like, Star Wars is gonna be forever tainted if this one movie doesn't make me happy. So I think there's a lot more pressure on Star Wars movies to get a lot of very different things right. Star Wars also has a long lineage and history to live up to. Marvel films have only been happening for the past maybe 10 years or so, whereas Star Wars has like 40 years of history and people's childhoods to really satisfy. That Star Wars just has, in my opinion, so many more boxes to check off than the Marvel movies do. You know, like, when it comes to like a Marvel character, you know, these aren't people that people have grown up with. So people maybe don't have a defined idea of specifically what these characters have to be without any diversions from it. However, with Star Wars, it's like Luke Skywalker can mean so much to one person, and, you know, if you divert from that in any way, it's like the end of the world, right? So I think just off the bat, the Star Wars movies are so much more heavily scrutinized, and I can imagine that makes them so much more difficult to write for. Like, I always talk about, you know, regardless of what you think about The Force Awakens, that is such a massive undertaking. You know, one, bringing Star Wars back after what, a 20-year hiatus, 10 years hiatus, 05 to 2015, you know, trying to open Star Wars up to a new generation of fans while also still trying to appease the old fans, you know, trying to create what is going to be your core of new characters while still, you know, giving Luke Skywalker, one of the most popular characters of all time, something to do, while still trying to give Han Solo something meaningful to do. You know, like I do not envy the, you know, the writers of that movie for trying to weave all of these things that mean so much to so many people into one movie. I don't think it's an easy thing to do. I genuinely just don't. And then when it comes to the context of the actual films, like I said, like, canon and Star Wars, like, each individual like decision on where the galaxy goes is just so much more significant and meaningful. Like, I feel like most people kind of just watch a Marvel movie and accept that they're just along for the ride, whereas with Star Wars, like, you know, like, there's just so many more things that people are considering that impacts whether or not they like a movie. And I mean, I don't want to get too heavy in the Far From Home spoilers, but if you haven't seen the movie, I'd say maybe skip like 2 or 3 minutes ahead in the video. But we were talking about this the other day on Axel stream, and we were kind of talking about how, like, you know, like, some of the effects of the spell that's cast at the end of the movie don't really make sense. Like, they're not really they don't make logical sense if you care to think about it. And these are also similar arguments that I talked about when it comes to Endgame, like with the time travel thing. Like those are just like in the content of the movie, when you don't think about it, it's fine. But you know, like it causes problems if you care to think about it longer than a minute or two. And I feel like Marvel fans, for the most part, are just kind of like, yeah, whatever, but the movie was fun. But when it comes to Star Wars, you know, people are writing 2 and 3 hour videos on like the physics of a spaceship and like whether or not the bombs can actually fall, and like talking about like hyperspace canon and all this like weird stuff. And like, you'll never hear that when it comes to a Marvel movie. Like, people aren't writing essays about the established, you know, Doctor Strange magic and whether or not a spell has a certain range and can accomplish certain things, or like, you know, the rules of Thanos' snap, and like, you know, does it just affect half of all people? But if it's all living things, then like the trees and the plants die too, so wouldn't that still like minimize resources? Like, what is the plan? Like, why would he not just, why would he snap half the people away? Can't he just snap to double resources? Like, there's so many more things that people are thinking about, in my opinion, when it comes to a Star Wars movie than when it comes to like a Marvel movie. I could be wrong about this. There could be those Reddit pages out there, those YouTubers who are making 3-hour videos on how like nothing makes sense in any of the Marvel movies. But in the big picture, I feel like Star Wars is just so much, like the individual things that happen in Star Wars movie are so much more heavily scrutinized than the individual things that happen in Marvel movies. So I don't know, you guys let me know, how do you feel about like Star Wars and Marvel? I think there's people who still will say, oh, Marvel still puts out better movies, and I'm not saying that's wrong. Like, if I was a big Marvel fan, I might be super happy with what Marvel's doing over Star Wars, but I'm a bigger Star Wars fan, so like, I'll never really view Marvel as better than Star Wars, even if the movies are objectively better. But I think from what I've seen, like, Star Wars has so much more of a burden in any individual film than Marvel does. So long-winded, but hopefully you guys get my point on that. And I would also love how you guys feel about that. Next question comes from Cuddle Bloops. They say, which do you prefer? A complete overhaul of sets, very different ways something is built, or the same set with some slight modifications? Over the years, it seems Lego has done some slight modifications with like the X-Wing, but the latest one seems like a complete overhaul. This is very true. I think it depends. I think there's certain sets where, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think Lego, for the most part, you know, outside of maybe the Force Awakens one, outside of the Rise of Skywalker one, had been following a very similar formula when it came to the Millennium Falcon. And I think most people were totally fine with that because, you know, in that 4504 Millennium Falcon, the second one, they got so many things right. Like, it was just a perfect playset, a perfect Lego playset for a Lego Millennium Falcon. They made a considerable amount of more improvements on it in the Rise of Skywalker one, but still at its core, you know, there's those pizza slices that open up on the top. It's using almost the exact same cockpit piece. Like, there are a lot of things that 4504 Falcon got perfect, and Lego's just been making slight improvements to it because there's just not much to change. And I think that's totally acceptable. I'm not gonna say like Lego's lazy or something for being so, I don't know, consistent when it comes to that Falcon design. On the other hand, there's times where Lego, I think, gets too complacent in a design, specifically when it comes to like the Snowspeeder, right? So the Snowspeeder set, you know, that second one, I think it's maybe 4501. I thought it was a pretty good playset. I liked that set a lot when I was younger. However, in 2022, the fact that it has had just minimal changes to it, I think is a problem. I think that the cockpit especially is just so wrong on the Snowspeeder, and if they were to update it, that'd be one of the first things I think that would need to go. But there's so many other things I think they can be doing with Snowspeeders. For example, we can make it gray again, since that's just the correct color for it. But yeah, so I think it goes both ways. I think sometimes, yeah, it's okay for them to stay consistent with the design. Some designs are just really good and not worth changing. When it comes to like the Snowspeeder, for example, yeah, it's about time we get a better design Snowspeeder. It's been enough time. Next question comes from Lamborghini Waffle Sauce. He says, serious question for Chef Boyo RD. I love it. What spices / seasoning do you use for your cooking? I personally can't sustain myself with either oregano or paprika. I don't know, I think I keep it pretty simple. Seasoning, salt, lemon, pepper, garlic powder. Those are my 3 go-tos. I don't really need to diverge too much from those 3 things. Next question comes from James Quinapalo. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. What are your thoughts on using big Duplo blocks in mocks for the hidden support sections? I talked about this before, but in short, I'm not super comfortable with it. To me, it feels like cheating. Yes, I get it, Duplo is Lego, but I mean, there's no real need to use Duplo for support. I think that normal bricks have much better clutch power, and I don't know, I just rather use one system. I don't really feel super comfortable mixing Duplo in for filler, but I know a lot of people do that, and I don't hate it. It's just something I don't feel comfortable doing. Next question, Warrisaur Builds says, I noticed you added more visuals during the video. It made it much more enjoyable to watch. I'm glad you enjoyed that. That was a conscious decision I made just to give people a little bit more to look at in these videos. His actual question says, are there any old videos you made that make you cringe? I don't really spend a lot of time going back to my old videos, honestly. I'm sure there's some, like if I went to it, you know, from when I was like 11 or 12 or 13, I might kind of be like, that's definitely not something I'd say now. But I like having them there, and you know, I don't really take videos down from, you know, the original Rich Boy J, just because like those were just such important parts of my life. And I think it's very cool for you guys to see just how I've evolved over time and see like that this isn't just something brand new to me. And see that this isn't just something brand new to me. I didn't just start doing Lego, but even, you know, back over 10 years ago, 15 years ago actually, you know, I was still actively into Lego, even if it wasn't specifically Star Wars. I was doing Lego wrestling with some Star Wars stuff here and there. This has been a lifelong thing for me, and I think it's cool to be able to show people that, you know, I've stayed true to the game, so to speak. But that's gonna finish the video today. I hope you guys enjoy checking out your questions answered. As I said before, if you want to see one of your questions answered in this video, leave it in the comment section below. Make sure it is Lego Star Wars or Lego Star Wars related, and then check back next week to see if you made the cut. If you like what I do, go ahead and support the video by hitting the like button, support the channel by smashing that subscribe button, and I'll be back again very soon.